Let's talk a little bit about identifying the core concept. Remember that we discussed this before. You can turn ordinary products into experiences, whether they be goods, services, ideas, or even ideologies. And the steps to managing experiences over time include identifying the core experience, designing the experience, staging the experience, and then managing the experience over time. Today, we're going to talk about identifying the core experience. And it's crucial to be able to do this because you can't design, stage, or manage an experience unless you know what it is. So, what about identifying the core experience concept? Well, these are the kinds of things we need to be thinking about when we try to identify the core experience concept. Now, in existing products like my example of the NHRA or NASCAR, we might be trying to identify the current core experience. In other cases, we might be identifying what an owner of a good or service might want to do in the future to either modify their core experience or to turn a functional product or service into an experience. So the first question is, well, what do we mean by the blank experience? All right, so we have all kinds of examples of that, right? We have something like the Fremont Street experience. Well, what do we mean when we say the Fremont Street experience? Well, for most of us, that means a trip downtown, trying to find some level of parking, and then taking our guests, typically out-of-town guests, over to see the video show on the ceiling of the Fremont Street experience. Most of us would also have some negative connotations about the experience in terms of perhaps people begging for money or whatever when we go down there. Okay, the second thing you might ask about in terms of a core experience, especially one that is somewhat transitional, is how do we expect people to be different from before they experience the product, good, or service, and then after they experience the product, good, or service. Another good way to think about the core experience is to ask yourself, what are the people paying to experience? Why are people spending money on this good, this service, this idea, or in our case, this experience? And so we talked about this with NASCAR. NASCAR is actually selling racing, but the NHRA is actually selling speed. And when we've talked about that before, and we'll talk about it again as we go through these examples. But the idea here is that people go to an NHRA event to see cars go really fast. In terms of the top fuel cars, we're talking about 0 to 100 in 1 second. So what are the dimensions of the experience? So dimensions of the experience include mental and physical stimulation elements that are your senses, your emotions, your thinking, the actions that you take, and your sense of affiliation or relating. Another way to look at the identifying the core concept is what do we want our guests to how do we want our guests to explain the experience to their friends? So when they say, well, what was that like? What do we want them to say about the experience? And then finally, what is the memorable part? So how do we make the experience memorable? The end result is the ability to define and understand the experience. Understanding the experience is crucial. Well, the building blocks to understanding a core experience are the senses, feelings, thinking, action, and relating. So let's cover each of those in turn. First, the senses. So the senses include touch, sight, smell, hearing, and tasting. So when we talk about the senses, we really mean, what does the experience look like? What does the experience feel like? What are the smells, the sounds, the taste of the experience? Some examples, and I have just some sort of random examples here. In terms of a concert, it might be what? It might be the way that the stage looks, the costumes of the people who are putting on the concert, props, seating, sound levels are all part of the senses. I know you've all been to concerts where the music was just too loud, and you've probably been to some concerts where the sound levels were somehow too low. At a concert, sound levels are a crucial aspect of making sure that the experience is very positive. In terms of an MBA program, it could be things like the look of the buildings and the rooms, the way the faculty dresses, smells, or even the absence of any smells. It could be the seating. Is the seating comfortable enough to sit in a classroom for 75 minutes without squirming in your seat? In terms of a restaurant, it's the look of the restaurant, the smells, the sounds, the taste of the food, and even the touch, like the weight of the forks and knives. Feelings. How does the experience make you feel? So feelings include emotions: happy, sad, anxious, nervous, maybe nostalgic. What are the emotions that are elicited? So when you go to a concert, the sort of feelings that you have is the feeling of excitement as the front band comes out and plays some songs, and then they typically dim the lights and the main attraction comes out. You might have a feeling of being anxious. You're ready to see that particular band perform. Or maybe anticipation. You're anticipating hearing particular songs that you remember from the band. An MBA program. It might be the sense of alma mater. The way that it makes you feel, the success, the joy of accomplishments, and sort of the sense of the school and being part of the school. A restaurant. Well, maybe it makes you feel like I'm in Italy or at my grandmother's house. The feelings may be happy, once again, anticipation of the meal and the experience. It could be a number of these things, and it really is the way that the experience makes you feel. It's an important part of understanding the core experience. Next is thinking. This is the mental stimulation, creativity, and problem solving. Perhaps when you're at a concert, it might be you thinking about the band's songs, the stories you overhear, the playlist that you are anticipating the band playing, or stories or memories that you have of the band. It can be, for an MBA program, it might be the learning activities and the projects that you worked on that enhance and reinforce the core experience of education. With a restaurant, it might be about reading the menu, having Nick or your waiter go over the specials, and trying to determine what you want to order on this particular day. Then we have actions. Actions are the mental and physical participation activities to get the individual immersed in the experience. At a concert, it could be sing along or clap along or cheering, etc. Lighting your lighters at the end of the concert in anticipating of the encore. For an MBA program, it might be making presentations, going to networking events and social events, and actually doing business rather than just learning about business. These are the action items. And they're very important in an educational setting. For a restaurant, it might include taking pictures to post, enjoying the meal. It could be engaging the waiter or waitress or the owner of the restaurant in conversation. And then finally is this concept of relating or affiliation. So relating refers to affiliation or a sense of belonging or team loyalty or relating the activity to your personal lifestyle. So at a concert, the way that you might relate to a concert would be to get a souvenir t-shirt with the date of the concert on it. Maybe taking pictures or buying the group's music online. Those are all ways to demonstrate your affiliation and your relationship to the band. There are certain bands that I certainly relate with that were part of my youth, and that when I do see them in concert, it takes me back, and I relate to them as being part of my youth. MBA programs, it's all about your school. Have we convinced you to be a supportive alumni while you are here? At the end of your leaving school, are you going to be supportive of the university, or are you going to disparage the university? Things like school apparel, license plate frames, etc. For a restaurant, it might be posting pictures, liking the restaurant on Facebook, etc. In summary, identifying the core experience is not as easy as you think, and in many cases, even myself, my first idea of what the core experience is and what it actually is often not correct, and I do need to make an adjustment to that. When you think about identifying the core experience, be specific. It could be an Italian restaurant, but a better description of the core experience is attending an Italian restaurant or visiting an Italian restaurant in Rome circa 1958. Another example here is the new Chevrolet Silverado Trail Boss truck. And I have a picture of it here on the left. It's really a regular Silverado that's got a slightly higher suspension and is four-wheel drive, versus a really true off-road warrior Chevrolet Silverado truck, like the one on the right, which last year made its debut in the Baja 1000 race. Now that's a real off-road warrior. Finally, understanding the difference between what the experience is and what it should be is critical. The Fremont Street experience is not probably what it should be, but it would take some significant activity to change it. Pay attention to the details. Can you really provide the stated experience? And then think about how the experience can be marketed. The bottom line, when you are doing this particular activity, be creative and be open-minded. Also, see the videos on the core experience examples that we also have in the file.